First of all, welcome to my book launch. It only took 12 years. Okay, so my co-reader tonight is my brother from another mother, Juicy, also known as Pete.
Hello.
Hello, Pete.
I'm going to do the embarrassing hello.
And also to a very, very special person, my mum, Jane. And a special thank you to everybody who's made it. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Okay. I need my clicky thing. Okay, so a couple of people have already asked about the title, Days of Debauchery. Debauchery is the excessive use of sex, drugs, and alcohol. All the good stuff, right? In moderation. But I mean, the question is, what do you call excessive? As a recovering addict, there was no such thing. There was never enough. So that's open to debate, you know. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to, unrehearsed, we're going to go through this, and we're just going to hope that our brethren bond pulls us together and this works. Do help yourself to milk and cookies. That'll make me feel better. So. But we're going to basically go from the start of the book. It's not too gritty, it's more of an introduction. And sorry, Mum, if you have to relive some of this, you know. But, and then we're going to go into maybe like 3/4 of the way through the book when shit starts happening. And we're going to sort of break that in two because that chapter's a little bit lengthy. We're going to have some music. All good. Let's just get started. Oh, and this contributed piece of artwork, which is going in the book, is courtesy of Jojo Millward. Hang on, need room. You good? So the opening chapter is called A Doorway Opens. You first.
Sometimes in life, doors will open while others will close, slamming straight into our faces, smiting our nose. The question is, which doors shall we take and which shall we ignore? Some will lead to pain, but still we explore.
And you don't need to steal it now. The path of drug use is not always what it seems. Things are not always what they seem. But everything that ends had a beginning.
One day, Georgie, I know you'll make it. Maybe as a rugby player, as a boxer, it's up to you, son. You've got spark, that hunger that people want to see, fire in your belly. It's like when I was half decent at darts. I've lost it now, but I can see it in you. Others can see it.
I recall our old fella prophesying to me just a few weeks before my final rugby game. He was so proud, his proclamation so certain. I've never bothered with superstition, our fates sewn in with the stars and the fortunes told in the lines of our palms, but I'll be damned if Dad's words didn't jip me. We'd lived, my family and I, in the southeast Leeds suburbs of Yorkshire for all of my short life, hitherto. 6 miles out of the city and into the villages and farmlands. My parents had never lived anywhere else, and never would. But oh, how they dreamed of leaving their dead-end jobs and shipping the four of us west across the Atlantic waters to Canada. But it was all just a dream, a distant working-class dream, and they knew it.
I'll tell you something else, Georgie. It's a sinking ship, this country, a sinking bloody ship. There's bugger all trust left in folk after what that cow Thatcher did. So I'll tax this and tax that, all so the rich can get richer and push the poor back down into the gutter. Them bastards down in their parliament make us pay tax on toilet roll and shite that we really need. But they don't bother with it on newspapers, do they? No, do they, chuff? It's because they're trying to brainwash us, son.
It's all about control, making us read what they want us to read, that's all. Take my advice, one day when you get older, get your sin gone as far away from it as you can. These were my father's harrowing words of wisdom when I was just a young'un, that and to trust no one. Dad was the greatest lorry driver in the world to me and looked every inch the road, with broad shoulders like mountain plateaus and a bulbous beer belly below. His skin was tough and coarse like the roughened feet of a nomad, but pale and mottled with freckles from our Irish ancestry. I might have tanned right arm after years of being out on the road. I can still feel the grating of his prickly jaw rubbing against my own until it was ruby and raw. Chin pie, he would call it, as my watering eyes would watch him laugh and smile beneath a big ginger moustache that drooped down at the ends. When he walked, he didn't just walk, but heaved his formidable mass like a mobile fortress, his tightened arms out wide like he was carrying invisible barrels. But he was lonely, like his fight was with the world itself. Sometimes when I was supposed to be in school, he'd smuggle me inside his Scania's cabin and take me travelling all over the country on deliveries, occasionally even sitting me on his knee to let me steer the 7.5 tons of machinery hurtling down the motorway. We were gods up there. One night when I was 5 years old, we were parked up near Brighton Pier on England's south coast when I'd woken and wept frantically upon realising that I was alone.
What's up with you lads? What you roaring for?
My dad's voice had called from outside the cab's door, sounding amused by my sobbing. I thought you'd left me. I was scared, I'd confessed dejectedly.
I was just taking a slash, son. Now don't worry. They don't need to worry. I'll never leave you.
He'd said, scuffing his solid fist on my matted hair and climbing back next to me in the bunk. Are you scared of anything, Dad? I remember asking him through the darkness, resting my head on his powerful bicep, the familiar smell of old oil and sweat quelling my disorientated nerves.
No, just being without you, your sister and your mum.
He'd said bluntly. Through the dim glow of a street lamp shimmering in his eyes, an alien tear had appeared, if only fleetingly, born in the horror at the mere mention of his woeful thoughts. Mum, however, just flitted as a factotum between factory jobs after her 2 pregnancies. Never once did she look back reproachfully towards her own desire of becoming a paediatric nurse. Too bound by a life of marriage, 2.4 children with dogs and dead-end jobs. She may have been small. At only 4'11", Mum was barely taller than the biggest of dwarfs. And spent her life with her bespectacled face talking upwards into a crowd. But her heart was the keystone of our home, the core and strength that fueled our fire. Dad said he loved it because she was plain, a plain Jane, he would say.
She's special as your mum. She doesn't need makeup or fancy clobber to make her beautiful. She doesn't even want the attention. She's too busy caring for other folk to care what others think of her. Only angels do that.
I remember him saying one day, when I asked how someone knows when they're in love. Besides me, there was also my older sister, Linda, who at 18 months my elder, always tried to look after me when the tears would come. She was my best friend when we was growing up. We looked somewhat similar, unsurprisingly, but differed considerably in our dispositions. There's no doubt about it, she was Daddy's little girl all right, stubborn and short-tempered with a satirical humour.
Nick-nog, nick-nog.
She would babble intermittently in the busy high streets while she held Dad's hand, her brazen expression staring up and pointing at black people as they passed by, looking aghast. At such a young age, her infant naivety may have been excusable, but her racial objectifications were not innate. They were stemmed from somewhere, with Mum running off ahead, head held low in embarrassment while Dad just laughed. It didn't take Sigmund Freud to see her dominant influence. I, on the other hand, was my mother's son through and through, soft-natured, introverted and satisfied to be left to my own imagination. Born in late January of '85, I still blame the day's winter snow for my ashen complexion and thick brown hair. Not so thick now, actually. But in the summertime, freckles would cover my nose and chubby cheeks, making the old girls coo and chuckle with their noisome odour of coffee and strong mints. As a child, I exhibited a deep sense of estrangement, as though I was an entity living inside a world fraught with private etiquettes and jokes that I remained shunned from. My friends were mostly grasshoppers and ladybirds who inhabited this vast stretch of pastures next to our small home, along with my father's gigantic Irish wolfhound, Sam. I wasn't scared to talk to Sam. It was just the other people outside of my family I had problems connecting with. My earliest memory in life was my first day at nursery. I'd cried in the playground because I'd been separated from Linda and the other children would not let me join in their game of hide and seek. I think I'd shit my pants. But eventually my imagination intervened, and I decided to play regardless. Squeezing my small, shit-stinking body between the toy shed and the perimeter wall, there I waited, excited, because just for a moment, I believed that I was winning. I'll show them, they'll never find me here. Lost in the solace of my reverie, I noticed the screams and shouts subside to silence. Oh, I never noticed. The sound of tiny feet scurrying back inside the old red brick building. It barely seemed like 10 minutes had passed, but I'd stood there alone for over an hour, oblivious, finally happy. Eventually a familiar voice bellowing my name broke the spell of my daydream.
Georgie, Georgie, where are you?
Came the shouts of my mother and sister. Confused and concerned by the tones of panic in their cries, I slid my way back from out behind the toy shed to find a deserted yard filled with the sounds of silence. Finally emerging, my mother gasped in relief, like when she breathed in from her asthma inhale sometimes. The nursery had been closed for half an hour until they had finally found me. Seeing Linda stood down by the side of our mum in the doorway, I ran over and clung tightly to her and burst into tears, refusing to let go. All in all, we were the typical nuclear family, tied to its primordial working-class roots in northern suburbia. Well, perhaps not entirely typical. Beneath our united exterior, dark pathological secrets laid latent and corrosive, rotting at our very core. That's the end of the first chapter. So I know we're kind of thinking like, where's the drugs, where's the debauchery and everything, but I mean, I wasn't born that way, you know, and this is one of the big themes. It's about how people don't always choose this, you know, you're not born into these things, you're made them by like many different conditions in life, whether it's like domestic issues, social issues, you know, there's so many to choose from. So now, I'd like to welcome a very, very old friend of mine who I've known since I was about 7 years old. We haven't seen him until tonight for about 14 years. So I'd like to welcome Matthew, Tiffany and Lawrence, who are going to play some music for us, whilst I drink some rum. And I hope you enjoy the rest of it.
Right, so we are the only two-man one-man band in the world, and we're going to start with a song called Bonkers by Dizzy Rascal. 1, 2, 3,
a novel originally. You know, people used to sort of mock and jest, like sort of walk around everywhere carrying a poetry book, you know, sort of doing poems and stuff in a scrapbook. And this is, so like, the book has like got a very poetic undertone to it. And this poem is taken from, I think it's the 3rd chapter, I believe, which is called The Rise of Revelation. So do the job.
In a peaceful hour, in the birth of morning, in my mind, a mist has cleared, smiling to myself. The bright new sun is dawning. I stand alone, stoned, and breathe the sweet green air. Birds all speak in liberty together. We haven't a care. I and them, we share this moment away from all our own piece of time. But I guess they'll never understand a word I say. So I guess that this little secret will have to stay truly mine.
You don't. Thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you. You appreciate it. It's okay, Drew. Okay, so and this, I'm sad to say that my friend who did this is he can't be here tonight, but he's a fantastic artist and musician and everything who probably shared many of these experiences. So to Alex van der Ven. Yeah, great guy. Okay, this next chapter is called The Tale of Dr. Delusional. I mean, this is like when I was 23, and sort of I'd really started to delve into this like whole sort of drug scene. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, you know, like where people, they don't consider you to be anything other than a junkie, so therefore you behave like a junkie. My particular Achilles heel was ketamine, which, for those of you who don't know, in the media is usually called a horse tranquilizer. Yes, it does put horses to sleep. I'm not a horse. But what they fail to mention, I'm not trying to glorify it, but what they fail to mention is they use this every day in hospitals on children too. And this is kind of what the book tries to approach. It's like there's two sides to this, and it's usually like a propaganda thing, you know, like they don't mention the good sides. So I'm not trying to glorify it, but there is a good side and a bad side to everything, including this. So, the tale of Dr. Delusional.
Extract from personal diary, 24th of the 1st, 2008, 2:23 a.m. Trying mad to sleep. But why have I still got the redneck voices, this jazz music stuck in my skull? Don't actually know if they're going to cut me open today, breach my bones. I hope so. My chest congested, feeling like a sticky cave of phlegm, saturated with sickness. The germ-riddled fluid ejaculated quick and fast from my mouth and the orifices of my face, spewing out the illness. Drip, drip, dripping rivers of the goo, splats then splutters. Either a sticky cave or dangerous Dave's ashtray, full to the brim with ashy filth dormant with disease, stale, stinking disease. They want me in at the sick house on the day of my birthday, sod's fate, this day, Sunday. The gas man there won't be happy, sticking his pipes and things into my contaminated veins, the wheezing hole of my throat where all I can do is spew the thick green slime all over his rubbery hands. No apology at all. I can picture the scene like a bad movie, clear and distasteful with misplaced consequence. Okay, he's stable. Start the procedure. Oh shit, he's starting to choke on something. The guy gets covered in infected mucus for all his effort, the bitter taste of bad apples for his devoted labour. Been waiting for this day for 10 years prior to now, 365 days it takes the Earth to circle the sun, and they chose this one. I feel they're mocking me. Nonetheless, I'm going to go to them, test their prowess with a medicine of my own. Except this prescription is non-NHS approved and definitely not recommended by standard morality. Only for a fool and for horses. But fuck it. It's just my way, my body, and my life hanging in the balance. My habit I'm satisfying. Selfish attitude, but I smile all the same. I imagine 10 hours from now, laid under the lurid lumps of the theatre beat machines, me under, tranquilised and gassed. But why can I still feel that tap-tap crunch and snap of the hammer, and its friend chisel smacking at my limb? Dumbstruck and incapable of voicing my pain because the bastards have only halfway drooped. Couldn't do the job proper because of the K coursing its way through me. Internally laughing. Never know. I might suddenly wake up and catch them in the act, meddling with my insides, and then try asking for a brew or some goddamn unkits to evade me of the pain I bring upon myself. They're the doctors. I'm just an inconsiderate delinquent spawned by the spunk of stupidity. Time to relinquish the tool in my hand and try to succumb to slumber, ignoring the pile of powder beneath my bed beckoning me to bed. I'm now 23, 2:44 a.m.
I awake feeling ragged and tattered like an aging vagrant, sleeping rough on the morning of my 23rd birthday. Having barely slept due to heavily blocked nasal passages, I cough and splutter into a pillow saturated with sweat. Wiping the white slimy scum at the corner of my mouth onto my arm, the thin hairs clump together as though they're glued. My nose stings like it's been scored with a scalpel. I know it hates me. As my senses begin to acclimatise to consciousness, I rub my stiffened neck, moaning defiantly, not wanting to face another day. I'm morosely irritated by the maturing chest infection. I'm irritated in the aftermath of debauchery only a few hours previously. Irritated mentally because I'm forbidden to eat or drink. Irritated because it's my birthday and I'm going to hospital. And irritated because I know that by the time the surgeon has finished with me, I won't be able to work again for 12 months. Something about grafting tendons to my knees and sticking a camera in there, they said. For the next half a year, I'll be crippled and imprisoned at home for my own welfare. Instead of a slave to the wage, at least capable of supporting my own sordid priorities.
Why did I have to play that day? Why me? Where would I be now? Fate? Fuck fate.
Both my bags are packed. The first for toiletries, numerous reading materials, and spare slumbering garments for my overnight stay in Pontefract Hospital. The second is concealed in the hidden compartment of my wallet, containing rationed provisions of regretamine. Its bulging contents amount to 4 grams, prudently leaving a surplus 6 grams stashed beneath my bed for when I return home tomorrow. Saving my drugs has never been something I'm good at. But after past experiences, I know that this time it's essential, as I'll surely desire the effects of spiritual and somatic separation when I return. It will be a stoical solution to counteract the bedbound boredom and obstructive pain from the operation. A ludicrous logic prevails when you live in the shadows of a secret melancholy. Melancholy? Yeah. Excuses for escape constantly defying the angel on your shoulder, sat gagged and bound by the devil on your other. The taxi arrives outside and I'm on my way. On arrival at the orthopaedic ward, I take my time in leaving the cab, stepping out slowly into the harsh cold like a chick from the safety of its egg.
Have a good day now.
The driver says to me, his voice the sound of piss falling on my head from a great height. Wanker. I don't tip him, he leaves me, they always do. Checking myself in at the reception desk, already I'm feeling emaciated and cursed by the indigenous vibe emanating throughout the twisting corridors inside this habitat of suffering. I find myself greeted by a middle-aged receptionist on the phone. She silently holds up a pen-bearing hand and smiles to signal that she'll be with me in just a moment.
Why not? I'm not going anywhere.
Her white shirt cuts in sleekly around her aging breasts, still showing a bit of buxom shape to her cleavage as she bends over to take notes. I imagine what sights they've seen throughout their life to occupy my thoughts, away from a stabbing headache, imagining how they would feel. All I've had in the last year was some filthy dick disease, chlamydia maybe, I don't know, donated by some burnt out old cougar with a cunt like roadkill. I've been so fucked up in my addiction that she's the only person who would even consider it. God, I hated her. Hated her cum face as I pounded on that bony body stinking of stale sweat and booze. I had nothing left to lose, my soul was dead. Finally, the phone goes. The phone goes down. Like a robot, she instinctively reverts back into her formal introductory, smiling a well-fabricated grin revealing heavy crow's feet around her narrow eyes, which are plastered with dark makeup. Still, she looks better than I do at 7 a.m. and she's twice my age.
Good morning, and how may I help you?
She asks me straight from the script. Morning, my name is George Neary, N for November, E-A-R-Y.
Ah, yes, I see we are on the list under Dr. Cowfield. Splendid. Could you state your date of birth?
Is she taking the piss? I feel my eyes slowly roll to the side of their sockets in disbelief, knowing for a fact that she's got it all on her system thingy right in front of her. She just sits there, waiting with that smile. 24th of the 1st, 1985. It's today. Looking over her glasses tentatively at her screen, she pauses and finally announces, "Oh, so it is. Fancy that, eh? Well, congratulations." She continues in that type of high-pitched, everybody's happy tone that should be made punishable until around noon on cold winter's mornings. She continues to procrastinate on her keyboard and after somewhat of an awkward silence picks up the phone again.
Tracy, hi love, it's me, Julie down at reception. What was that? Oh yes, I know, terrible, wasn't it? Yes, absolutely. Well, nothing you can do there, love, no. Anyway, I've got Mr. Neary down here, scheduled for around 1. Yes, that's correct. Ward number 2. Could you come down and collect it, please? Thanks.
Shoot me now. 2 minutes later, after staring avidly at the ceiling, attempting to count the number of squares Panels trying to block out Julie's voice. The errand girl comes strolling down the corridor and my attention is diverted with immediate effect. That thermometer, anywhere, love. I hear a voice in my head say, the new girl, this Tracy, as confirmed by the badge on her chest, is here to escort me to my designated ward and bed. If only she was to stay. She's a short, no, petite nurse with dark brown hair falling just past her slim shoulder line and blazing blue eyes that suddenly make me feel quite wide awake. She's perhaps around my age too, if not a little younger. A single word falls gracefully from her lips.
John?
My breath fumbles awkwardly, like the first time I'd laid in the dark with a girl when I was 12. The response takes its time to leave. Aye, that's me. How do you do? Tracy turns her eyes to meet mine, and sadly I recognise the same professional expression as her colleague behind the desk.
Just fine, thank you. Would you mind just following me for a moment? Come this way and we'll get you sorted for your pre-op evaluation by the anaesthetist as soon as possible.
I smile secretly, harnessing my tongue. Not at all, love. I'd follow that figure into a lake of fire if you ask me. Her nimble legs, visible to the knee, stroll away from me. She walks like a cat towards me, finally dropping the professional exterior.
You had me worried then.
She says, something in her eyes, the way they widen so slightly, tells me that she's just noticed my playful smile.
You get that one for free as it's your birthday. I've got my eyes on you. Come this way.
I'll come any way you want. Sorry, Mum. I still love you. We make small talk as we walk side by side about developments to the new maternity ward and such. Also, that I'm the third patient on the list to go to theatre, sometime maybe around 1 p.m. We turn another few corners and enter into a square, white room labelled Ward 2.
So this is you. Here's your bed, your robes, and should you need anything, don't be scared to press the button here and someone will be down as soon as possible. Just no joking around with it, remember. I've got my eyes on you.
Tracy warns, waving her finger in jest, and mine on you. She leaves. Throwing my belongings on top of the mechanical bed, I grab hold of the hospital robes and take them to the nearby restroom to transform into an institutionalised inmate of the ward. I bolt the door securely and find the dry surface to powder my nose. The toilet lid should do nicely, bit of a wipe. Card and note, not too much though, pace yourself, it's going to be a long day. Looking at my reflection ruefully in the mirror, I wish my unshaven, sallow, my happy face, happy birthday. New drug spots are pushing their way to the surface of my greasy skin as my body tries to exercise the chemical excrement up through my pores. The lids of my glazed eyes, a plethora of purples. A drowned dog would have more life in their eyes than you. Coughing hard several times, I hear my lungs rattle with infection, forcing me to nearly vomit in the wash basin, but I hold it down. Eventually managing to unburden my chest, I dislodge a pool of phlegm to try and avoid any notification of my sickness when I return. I've come too far now. Emerging from the water closet in my standard issue hospital garment, the one with a huge split up the back which always makes you feel cold and vulnerable, I wobble while I still can to the window of the room, sniffing conspicuously, kind of like to do. Gazing outside into the morning, I search for a source of consolation. Just a tree or two, Yorkshire landscapes, the sun ascending into morning sky to light my day a little. Alas, nothing but a construction site, ugly iron girders of deep red, great swirling clouds of dirt distorting the air around me and floating up into my cell. I close the windows and it's stifling. The case slowly sedates my feelings of isolation as my mind drifts off into vivid fantasies about what I could be doing back home to celebrate. Nearly done. A refreshing pint of Guinness at the local, pizza and a white Russian cocktail in Leeds with friends. A night of excusable excess in which I'm expected to make a complete beast of myself. Well, at least I've got you, my dear friend. I chuckle to myself, patting my pocket where the bulge of my stash is. After some time, my reverie is suddenly disturbed by the waylaying gibberish of a new arrival in the room. He limps in slowly, his old face heavily wrinkled like a sagging scrotum, grimacing in pain, propped up under the arm by one of the attendants, who leads him to the bed next to mine. Oh, Jesus, it's the Walking Dead. Just what I need. He smells of old and smiles awkwardly, bearing the plastic grin of dentures. Dentures, they always remind me of Dennis, the nonce. Looks harmless enough, I suppose. It's true, we all get old, and he appears genuinely friendly. The old guys in hospital usually are.
It's just the old lasses who give you the most of the jip.
I recollect the nurse who I was screwing telling me. I mull over my sorry state and feel pathetic. And here's this guy just laughing at his own expense, smiling in the face of death and accepting his fate. That's strength. Despite my newfound admiration, once the assistant has left, the guy precipitates to blow my buzz by trying to coax me into small talk.
Consider yourself lucky, young'un. The ours be reet in a few weeks. Big lad like you. I'll be lucky to make it up there, let's blow it out.
He grunts out of a throat riddled with excess mucus, or maybe cancer. My tongue remains slack and unresponsive like dead meat laid in a tomb. Wishing not to seem ignorant as my conscience finally gets the better of me, I extend my hand to my new neighbour's wrinkled old claw, which I notice is already tagged and numbered like a pigeon by the nurses. Mumbling my way through a cumbersome introductory, I manage to formulate a few vague sentences through a number of desperately fumbling stutters. Hey, I'm George. How you doing? From here on, I just listen, avoiding verbal reciprocation by simply nodding as he spiels off his tale of woe and how he came to be here, occasionally wiping my nose casually to avoid any detection of my recent indulgence. I utter bitterly the untimely circumstance of today being my birthday, and I'm pissed off to be held here in hospital at the will of the NHS. The guy sympathises with my sorrow as he produces an unexpected gift from inside his travel sack.
Well, look, I knows it ain't much, but you can have these if you want them. We're not to eat before we go up, like, but a few animal crackers
Won't kill.
Won't kill.
He says as I walk over and take them from him, thinking all the time, it's not the food in my stomach I'm worried about.
Oh, telling you, it's a right load of old bollocks. I've had some operations in my time, and a small bite before never did me any harm.
Well, don't mind if I do. Cheers. I think, even though I've sincerely sworn to fast until the post-operation meal is provided later. The idea behind this, of course, is ensuring that I avoid any complications during my time relying on the life support of these strangers and their expensive gadgets. Taking the box, I place it in my bedside drawer out of sight of temptation. I decide that perhaps once the lines have finally subsided, I should make more of a conscious effort to empathise with my benign brethren, who probably wishes that he wasn't here just as much as I do. His name was Arthur, his eyes were tiny, and they were kind. Pause. Going in for a general anaesthetic, which is a sedative. I mean, the urban myth would be that ketamine, as a sedative itself, reduces the chance of general anaesthetic working. So therefore, it's kind of like dicing with death, trying to slipping on the sedative before you go in. So I mean, it was more of a very stupid decision to try and see if this would work. This was a relatively long chapter, so we're going to break it into two. For now, once again, I'd like a very big round of applause for a very good friend of mine, Alex Wales, who's going to do some music for us.
Play a few covers. This is a spooky song. In the cool of the evening when everything is getting kind of groovy, I'll call you up and ask you if you'd like to go with me and see a movie. First I say no, I've got some plans for the night, but then I stop and say, oh,
the place where Jack was born, actually.
Yeah, Jack.
It seems to just sprout mischief, this place, you know. Just look at it. Is that policy lad? Someone's got to live there, right? Yeah, I know. I've been there, man.
People shouldn't be allowed to live there.
No. Oh, I really need to apologise as well. Like, I'm aware that like certain descriptions of like the females do seem to like objectifying and maybe sort of touching on that sort of slightly derogatory sort of term, you know, on that term. But it took many years of being an arsehole to become this nice, I assure you. Thank you. Yeah. I haven't forgot about that, you know. But this is like the disclaimer right here. But I mean, also there's no smoke without fire, and there was a reason for that, you know. I was still developing as a person. So I can see like, yeah, you better be. The best day of my life, really. Hours pass and my bag of supplies is rapidly reduced by half as tedious time ticks away. These same four walls torturing my lust for life. Occasionally I'm interrupted by brief interviews with the surgeon and the anaesthetist who try to pick away at my vacant brain for information. All the while I'm trying to conceal the fact that I'm heavily under the influence and longing to free another thick lump of chest infection from my tickling throat. When the coast is clear, I lay back and mentally digest chapters from The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, with sporadic intervals to the restroom. I somehow form self-righteous reasoning in my folly, telling myself that I must stay true to who I am. Sometimes, upon my return, I find myself falling deeper than intended into the mist of a ket-hole. Fortunately, after years of practice, I'm well versed in the event of such an eventuality.
Sadly, always when you least expect it, but never when you seem to want it, like the time during an important banquet with my father. He forced me to go to dog racing with him and his friends, even though he knew I already had plans. My selfishness caused quite a scene as I sat silently swaying like a drunken deaf mute at the dinner table. After a small part of me returned, I realised what I'd done and quickly escaped via the most expensive taxi ride I've ever taken. Luckily, I'd just won, so headed straight to get a cure for my guilt. We never spoke of this again.
But here in Pontefract Hospital, it's easier. Pulling the curtain around my bed and laying down pretending to sleep or read with my prominently powdered nose hidden firmly in my book. Nostalgia returns once again to fill in the transient space of constructive thought suppressed by the ketamine. My mind goes back a few months to the last time that I was here for my pre-operation screening. Remembering being sat alone in a little room answering a variety of questions on a clipboard about my medical history and what's expected of me prior to the date of incision. One of the questions on the nurse's lists has consisted of a mishmash of listed narcotics and intoxicants she wanted me to indicate whether or not I'm a regular user of. I noted down the truth at that point that I didn't drink so often and never acknowledged the benefits of nicotine. Without tetrahydrocannabinol, it just gives me a headache. Weed. Followed by a rancid smelling fingers and breath, which I've no desire to endure. But even cannabis had strongly lost its appeal. I observed that at some point over the last 5 years, I've experimented with at least, or experienced not most of them, but all of them. Not my proudest of moments. I'd informed the nurse of my present relinquishment of all the above options, but considered it only the right to enlighten her of my excessive use of tranquilizer, which wasn't present on the list. I thought I'd best tell you I'm addicted and not exactly proud of it. Due to its anaesthetic properties and use in medicinal practice, ketamine can apparently hinder the anaesthetic's use to render patients unconscious, causing mass complications and side effects due to the body's tolerance to similar substances. She'd seemed empathetic and admired my honesty. I suspected this was just her professional exterior, disguising her natural disdain for society's outcasts such as myself, who are judged solely on their volition to escape reality via untaxable drugs, as opposed to cigarettes and alcohol.
Well, I appreciate that, and it was the right thing to do, but I strongly urge you not to take it a week before your operation, or yes, it could have adverse effects.
A week. A week. My dear woman, clearly we've just met. I can't remember the last time I had a few days off, let alone a whole week. My inner voice had shouted, but instead I'd just nodded. I come around and noticed that Arthur has returned from his trip to the theatre. He'd been gone for a couple of hours. Like a corpse made of wax, he looks worse now than when he went up there. Christ, what the hell did you guys do to him up there? Drink his blood? I think deeply disturbed by his presence, his half-empty glass of water beside him, and the struggling sounds of his breath as his decaying body contends with consciousness and death. But you made it, Arthur. You made it, old boy. Turning away, the salvation of sleep overcomes me, and I dream of the nubile nurse from earlier, Tracy. I dream of her attending to my every desire behind the closed curtains of my bed, her sympathy rousing much gratitude in my hour of need, a true sister of mercy. Her skirt hitched high around her golden thighs, telling me that my vital signs are functioning wonderfully. The dream is the pinnacle of my birthday, one moment of unperturbed bliss away from the pressures of drug addiction and my personal hell here in hospital. They do say that without our dreams we would surely go insane. But as always, it's soon disturbed by an irritating nudge in my side. Opening my eyes unwillingly, I quickly slam them shut again, trying desperately to go back into the safety of my dream, where I'm on the brink of blowing my load. I fail miserably as the nudging persists relentlessly. Above me lurches an old, balding janitor-type chap, garbed in death-ridden blue overalls. This better be good. Do you have any idea what I'm missing?
I believe it's your turn, son.
He says, holding his spectacles whilst checking the board at the end of my bed. It's only 11:30 though. Bit early, aren't you?
Well now, don't shoot the messenger. Them upstairs say they're ready for you, so there you have it. Come on, let's get it over and done with that.
Easy for you to say, innit, pal? Not hesitating a single second, I dashed to the toilet to drain the lizard before we commenced. Taking my wallet with me, buried deep within my dressing gown pocket, this is just my way. When I return, Arthur stirs and bids me farewell. The janitor-type chap waiting for me with a wheelchair and a grin. Either you're a fucking sadist, or I'm not the only one who's hiding this place.
Will I be taking you in the chair, sir, or do you want to walk up yourself?
I meditate upon this request for a second or two, mulling over the sentence structure. I'll walk behind. I'd rather utilise two fully functioning legs while I'm still able. With my tongue firmly wedged in my cheek, I refrain from proclaiming my devotion to challenging gravity as I ricochet down the corridors upon tranquilised legs in defiance, feeling like a lamb to the knife as I am directed upstairs to the room of doom. I walk through the doors with uncalculated steps one by one. Entering the theatre, I'm blinded by bright lights fixed to a stand, forcing me to shield my face. I imagine I've just been abducted and taken aboard a glowing UFO where the little blue people inside will perform scientific experiments on me. I notice half a dozen pair of eyes staring at me, transfixed beyond the lights, squinting through the small gap between their scrub masks and headdresses, pulling on gloves and mumbling to one another in strange tongues about things I don't understand. They're busy tampering with buttons, cleaning components on bleeping machines. There are trays lined with ominous-looking objects, just waiting to do heaven knows what. Get a grip, man. They're the good guys, remember, the responsible ones. Managing to compose myself, I decided not to show any signs of anxiety. Let the ketamine be my guide. For God's sake, don't offer these bastards the chance of satisfaction.
Oh, I see it's your birthday today. How unfortunate. Did you get anything nice?
One of the hidden faces, clearly a female, asks from beneath her disguise. Do I look like I'm at a party here? You're about to smash my legs to bits and make me a sodding cripple. Just get on with it. I never was a morning person. No, just a box of chocolates from Arthur downstairs, and whatever you guys do. I grumble quietly, not wanting to be engrossed in a rally of conversation.
Oh, Arthur, how was he when you left? Poor old guy looked a bit worse for wear after his arthroscopy. Minor complications because of his age, you see.
I want to tell her that he looked like thawed death. I want to tell her that he's probably sitting on the edge of a mortal coil as we speak, ready to fall into deathly sleep. He's not bad, he's awake. But now he's looking a bit rough. As I'm laid upon the centre table and surrounded by surgeons, I become relaxed and almost euphoric, with the gradual increase of wave after wave of sedation from the last line.
You're remarkably calm, aren't you?
One of them states, perhaps looking at the explanatory evidence plastered on the inside of my nostrils. But this time, I really don't care. Let the chips fall where they may. How could this day get any worse? I think rhetorically. I casually shrug and keep my mouth shut. This is no time for chat. Too much is at stake now. I must remain ignorant.
Okay, now just a sharp scratch and then count to 10 for me, please.
I feel the sharp pain in the top of my wrist like a bee sting as the anaesthetist pokes something in me. Time to put your drugs to the test. With my eyelids feeling magnetised to each other as I slip into induced sleep, the last thing that goes through my mind is the faint sensation of foreboding as I recall the possibilities of plight I've inflicted upon myself. The lights disappear, it's dark now. I sleep for what feels like 1,000 years. When I eventually open my eyes, I'm laid back in my bed downstairs on the ward. I'm alone. Slowly the cloud of disorientation moves on and sense floods back. I remember where I am, who I am, what I'm doing here. Looking at my leg, bandaged and bound. It hurts like hell, and I know that it will get worse once the medication starts to wear off. Sitting up now, I realise that I've survived. A cause for celebration. Closing the curtain, I rummage for my wallet as I struggle to recall where I've left it. Did they find it? I feel the bulge in my dressing gown and proceed, leaving the curtains closed to enjoy seclusion and safety out of the way of prying eyes. It's a big line. Laying back, I slip into the familiar feeling of intoxication, thinking of home, the aching in my limb, subsiding as my habit abates my pain. The same old story. The bag is empty now, and I'm glad. Yeah, that's you. I'll do it, it's cool. Thinking back to that day, I somehow feel as though karma did me wrong by letting me survive. Or perhaps indeed let me live to endure the consequences of my guilt. The doctors were angels who kept me breathing and found the power to forgive my stupidity. Despite jeopardising their jobs and my life in the process, logic rarely prevails when you're down and out. But life is always worth living. It could always be worse, and for millions of others, it is. Right guys, you know through it now, don't worry. We're all good. Hang on. So now we just have, from me and Juicy anyway, there's just one thing left which I really feel as though I need to do. Not drink. And I show you the runny nose actually is more through hay fever. I'm all good now, you know. I'm in the right place. But no, this is it's a poem which my mum heard quite a while ago when I never thought this book. I didn't even know it was a book. This was just, as I say, it was just sort of notes in a notebook. And she heard it, and I remember the look on her face. I think I was high as a kite at the time. And I don't know, it's like, it was pretty special. It's called A Mother's Love. Hang on, I need to compose myself. Lay me on the bed, look into your baby's eyes. I'm so sorry. Please help me, Mum. I don't want to be blind. I'm feeling so strange, drained of all life and pride. Became my own victims from mistakes I chose to hide. Please reach into my tainted soul which once was pure. Please bring me your loving words, please be my cure. An antidote to this poison, the lost key to my door. Living life was far too long, advice I chose to ignore. But is it too late? Have I expired? I'm struggling to speak, and my heart is tired. I was always wrong, I'm so sorry I lied. My family had no sympathy, my sweet mother cried. I'm so sorry, Mum. I should have listened. You are my saviour, my sunlight, my world's warm and cold. Please believe when I say that no son could ever love you more. It's to hit you now. It's pretty overwhelming, you know. Okay, so now, I think I'm over myself. We're going to have a bit of Q&A. I mean, if you have any questions, please feel free. So just put your hand up, you know, I'll try my best to answer them. If you don't, then screw, we're just going to go to the music and I'll drink more. It's cool. Does anybody have any questions? Rich?
Hi, mate.
Hey, man.
So, in the beginning of the stages where you got touched by anything, what's the first advice as of someone that's been experienced? So imagine you was in the place where you was before you got into anything.
Yeah, sure.
What's the best advice you give to anyone before they got into it? So imagine you give advice to yourself, what would you say?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the way that I would think about this, you know, is like a question which I often get asked, which is, if I had children, how would I deal with this? If they were going through this same thing, if they were going down that road, what would I say? You mean like that type of thing?
Yeah, speaking from experience,
Yeah.
what would you say?
Find your own way.
1%?
Find your own way. I applaud people who make mistakes. Suffering makes people so much stronger. I don't want to see that in anybody. But I mean, find your own way, make your own mistakes and learn from that. You know? It's a rocky road and like people will discourage you from it, they will judge you for that. But I mean, I always thought, you know, there wasn't help out there, you know, like when I thought, you know, I'm getting a bit too deep. You know, because there's nobody else who can convince you otherwise. You know, there's nobody. Not a girlfriend, not your family. But there is help out there, and sometimes it comes in the strangest of forms. It could be a stranger, it could be maybe watching something or listening to something. Music, I mean, I found really helpful. But if you enjoy the ride while it lasts, you know. I mean, like some of the highs can be great. It's not a popular stance, I know. But you're going to do it. You're going to do it regardless. But when you're ready, don't deny it and seek the help that you need. I mean, I invited some guys here tonight actually from like the rehab process which I went to. I had to go to uni and say, I got issues, you know, and they sent me to a place in York, and those guys were great. I mean, I best contend to Buddhism, you know, and that really helped. Does that answer anything?
No, it does, yeah.
Okay, in the cut down version, the concise version, ride the wave. So who else had a question? Forgive me, I don't know your name, please tell me.
Why now? Why now to write the book about this?
I started writing when I was about 18. Actually, about 18. It was a group of short stories, and eventually, as it progressed, it sort of really formed. I mean, I was homeless when I was like 18, and that gave me a lot of time to think and a lot of time to write. And eventually, it all came together. I mean, like now, there's a very, very simple principle, which is it's not an advocation, and it's also not saying that it's wrong. It's just the brutal reality of it. I feel, after moving to Sweden, I feel as though that I've got to terms with my demons. Now's the right time to do it. I think, you know, where I feel as though I can speak from the outside in, if you wish. I think. I mean, I would rather try and encourage people to sort of just, as I said to Rich, try and find their own way. But I mean, it's been pretty stressful, like with dissertations and everything. I wish I could have sort of done that more like with charity and everything to like sort of do that. But it's not over. There's plenty more time yet.